It's a beautiful Thursday morning in January. Texas winter. Crisp, clear, perfect running weather. You're 19 years old, home from college for winter break. Your whole life is ahead of you. You lace up your Asics running shoes. Clip your yellow Walkman to your waistband. Your favorite songs are queued up. You're wearing your gray jogging pants and that green sports bra you always wear for long runs. Your parents have already left for work. Your little sister's at school. The house is quiet. You step outside. The sun is warm on your face. You start jogging down Netch's Trail, the same route you run 100 times. For miles. Easy. You'll be back in less than an hour. A neighbor sees you at 10 a.m. You wave. You look happy, relaxed. Another neighbor spots you at 11 a.m., just 200 yards from your front door. Almost home, but you never make it inside. By 3 p.m., when your dad gets home from work, you're gone. Your phone is on the kitchen counter. Your purse is on the table. Your car is in the driveway. But you vanished. And here's what will haunt you about this story. Rachel Cook disappeared in broad daylight, in the middle of a Thursday morning, from a quiet Texas neighborhood, while dozens of people were home, while construction workers were building houses nearby, while life was happening all around her. And nobody saw what happened. For 23 years, Rachel's family has been searching. For 23 years, investigators have been chasing shadows. For 23 years, someone has been keeping a terrible secret. And what you're about to hear is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about this case. Before we begin, I just want to say thank you for being here. Really, whether you're watching from Texas, somewhere else in the U.S., or across the world, drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you right now. I love seeing this community come together from all over. It reminds me that Rachel's story matters to all of us. So comment below. I read every single one. All right, let's talk about who Rachel Cook really was. Because before she became a missing person case, she was someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's best friend. Rachel Cook was born in 1982 to Robert and Janet Cook. She grew up in Georgetown, Texas, a small city about 30 miles north of Austin. If you know Texas, you know Georgetown. It's that classic small Texas town. Friday night football. Everybody knows everybody. The kind of place where parents don't worry about their kids. By January 2002, Rachel was 19 years old and absolutely thriving. She graduated from Georgetown High School in 2000. A star student, popular, loved by everyone who knew her. Her Aunt Elaine would later describe her this way. She was full of life, loved to be around people. She loved to laugh, loved fashion. Fashion, that detail stuck with me. Because Rachel wasn't just any teenager. She had style. She had personality. She had dreams. After high school, Rachel enrolled at San Diego Mesa College in California. She was studying fashion merchandising. She wanted to work in the fashion industry, maybe move to Los Angeles or New York one day. She had plans. She had ambition. But here's what made Rachel special. She was also an incredible athlete. Rachel had been a star cross-country runner at Georgetown High. Running wasn't just exercise for her. It was meditation. It was peace. It was freedom. Every morning, Rachel would go for her 4-mile run. Didn't matter if it was summer or winter, hot or cold. That run was part of who she was. And on January 10th, 2002, that run would be the last thing she ever did. Christmas 2001 had been wonderful for the Cook family. Rachel was home from California for winter break. She'd been back in Georgetown since mid-December, catching up with old friends, spending time with her parents Robert and Janet, and her younger sister Joanne. The plan was simple. Rachel would stay home through January, then head back to San Diego for the spring semester in late January. She had a few more weeks to enjoy being home. Rachel was in great spirits. She'd been shopping. Of course, she loved shopping. She'd been hanging out with friends. She'd been running every single day, keeping up her fitness. Janet Cook would later say, she was so happy. She was looking forward to going back to school. She had her whole life ahead of her. But there was something nobody in the family knew. Something that wouldn't come out until much later. Something that changes everything about how we understand what happened to Rachel. Because Rachel had a secret. And that secret might be the key to finding out what happened to her that January morning. But we'll get to that. First, let's talk about January 10th, 2002. Thursday, January 10th, 2002. A normal day. A beautiful day. Robert Cook woke up early for work. He was a manager at a local company. He had to be there by 7:30 a.m. Janet Cook also left early. She worked as well. Their younger daughter, Joanne, went to school. Rachel? Rachel was asleep on the living room sofa when everyone left that morning. She'd stayed up late the night before, probably watching TV or talking on the phone with friends. It was winter break. What college kid doesn't sleep in? The house was quiet. Rachel was safe, sleeping peacefully. Everything was fine, or so they thought. Sometime around 8:30 or 9 a.m., the exact time is uncertain, Rachel woke up. She did what she always did, got ready for a morning run. She changed into her gray jogging pants, put on her green sports bra, laced up her Asics running shoes, the ones with the specific tread pattern that investigators would later try to trace. She grabbed her yellow Walkman. This was 2002. Remember, iPods were just starting to come out. But Rachel had her trusty Walkman with a CD loaded with her favorite songs. She didn't take her phone. She didn't take her purse. She didn't take her keys or her wallet. Why would she? She was just going for a run. She'd be back in 45 minutes, maybe an hour tops. Rachel stepped outside into the beautiful Texas morning and started running. The route she typically took was along Netch's Trail, a semi-rural area northwest of Georgetown. Some houses, some open land, some wooded areas. It was quiet, safe. The same route she'd run dozens of times before. Here's where the timeline gets crucial, because multiple people saw Rachel that morning. Around 10 a.m., a couple driving to the neighborhood reported seeing a young woman matching Rachel's description jogging. She looked at ease, relaxed, happy, just enjoying her run. Nothing seemed wrong. Around 11 a.m., another witness, this one is critical, saw Rachel jogging near her home. Just 200 yards from the Cook family's front door. 200 yards. That's less than 2 football fields. That's a 2-minute walk. Rachel was almost home, but she never made it inside. Robert Cook got home from work around 3 p.m. that afternoon. It had been a normal work day. He was probably looking forward to a quiet evening at home with his family. He walked in the front door. Rachel? You home? Silence. Robert looked around. Rachel's purse was on the kitchen counter. Her phone was there. No missed calls. No messages. Her keys. Her wallet. Everything was exactly where she'd left it that morning. At first, Robert thought maybe Rachel had gone somewhere with a friend. Maybe someone picked her up and they went to the mall or out to lunch. Rachel was social. She was always meeting up with people. But then Robert noticed something. Rachel's running clothes weren't in the house. Her Asics shoes weren't by the door. Her Walkman wasn't on her nightstand where she usually kept it. And that's when the cold realization hit him. Rachel had gone for a morning run, and she never came back. Robert immediately started calling her friends. Have you seen Rachel? Is she with you? No. Nobody had seen her since the day before. By 4 p.m., Robert and Janet had reported Rachel missing to the Georgetown Police Department. And by nightfall, hundreds of volunteers were searching every inch of Georgetown, Texas, looking for a 19-year-old girl who had simply vanished into thin air. I want you to imagine, for just a moment, what Janet Cook went through that day. You wake up. You go to work. It's a normal Thursday. You're thinking about what to make for dinner. Maybe you're thinking about weekend plans. And then you get a phone call from your husband. Rachel's missing. She went for a run this morning and she never came home. For a parent, that phone call is, I can't even describe it. Your whole world stops. Every fear you've ever had as a mother comes flooding in at once. Janet rushed home. She walked into Rachel's room, a room that looked exactly like a 19-year-old's room. Clothes laid out, makeup on the dresser, magazines on the bed. Everything normal. Everything unchanged, except Rachel wasn't there. Janet would later say, "I think about her every day, at least 100 times a day. She's a part of me, and I'm not going to give up." 100 times a day for 23 years. That's 8,395 days. That's over 839,000 times that Janet has thought about her daughter. Wonder where she is, what happened, if she's alive, if she suffered. And here's the worst part. Without a body, without answers, Janet can't grieve. She can't have closure. She's stuck in this horrible limbo between hope and despair. Every time the phone rings, there's that split second where she thinks, is this it? Did they find her? And every time it's not, the wound opens fresh again. Within hours of Rachel being reported missing, Georgetown mobilized. The Georgetown Police Department immediately launched a search. The Williamson County Sheriff's Office got involved. The Texas Rangers, Texas's elite law enforcement agency, joined the investigation. By Friday morning, less than 24 hours after Rachel disappeared, hundreds of volunteers had shown up to help search. Rachel's Aunt Elaine remembers it vividly. People in the community who heard Rachel disappeared, they didn't know her, they didn't know us, but they came and helped search day after day. Texas X Search, a volunteer search and recovery organization, brought in their teams with ATVs, helicopters, and search dogs. They searched the area around Netch's Trail. They searched wooded areas. They searched fields. They searched drainage ditches and creeks. They found nothing. No clothing. No Walkman. No running shoes. No signs of a struggle. No blood. No evidence whatsoever. It was as if Rachel Cook had simply evaporated into the Texas air. But then, witnesses started coming forward with something interesting. Multiple people reported seeing suspicious vehicles in the area that morning. Not one vehicle, multiple. Vehicle number 1, a white or light blue Pontiac Trans Am or Chevrolet Camaro. Several witnesses saw this car cruising slowly through the neighborhood around the time Rachel disappeared. The driver appeared to be watching something, or someone. Vehicle number 2, a dark-colored truck or SUV, also seen in the area multiple times that morning. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The area where Rachel disappeared was being developed in 2002. New houses were being built. There were construction workers all over the place. So were these vehicles just construction workers' cars? Or was someone prowling the neighborhood, looking for an opportunity? One witness, a woman who came forward years later, said she had been followed by 3 men in a vehicle about a week before Rachel's disappearance. The men looked like construction workers. They followed her for several minutes before she managed to lose them. She didn't report it at the time. She thought maybe they were just being creepy. But after Rachel disappeared, she wondered, were these the same men? For years, the white Pontiac Trans Am was the most promising lead in Rachel's case. Investigators became convinced that this vehicle was connected to Rachel's disappearance. They put out public appeals. If you owned or knew someone who owned a white Trans Am in Georgetown in 2002, please come forward. In 2018, 16 years after Rachel disappeared, investigators finally located the Trans Am they believed might be connected to the case. They brought it in. They searched it. They processed it for evidence. And they found nothing. No DNA. No fibers matching Rachel's clothing. No blood. Nothing. The Trans Am was a dead end. But was it really? Or did someone clean that car very, very thoroughly before investigators ever got their hands on it? Because here's what investigators aren't telling the public. They have a suspect. They've had a suspect for years. Someone who was in that area that day. Someone who knew Rachel. Someone who has been distancing himself from the incident and talking about it in the third person, as if he wasn't involved. And that person, he's still walking free. Remember when I said Rachel had a secret? Here's where it gets complicated. After Rachel disappeared, investigators started going through her life with a fine-tooth comb. They looked at her phone records, her computer, her diary. They interviewed every friend, every classmate, every person she'd interacted with, and they discovered something Rachel's parents didn't know. Rachel had been seeing someone, not a boyfriend, at least not officially, but there was a man in her life, someone older, someone her family wasn't aware of. In 2021, the Williamson County Sheriff's Office released a statement saying they were looking for a man who may have been an associate of Cook's while she was in Georgetown and is also believed to be involved in the cattle and horse industry. Cattle and horse industry. That's specific. This man had been talking about Rachel's case, but the way he talked about it raised red flags. He spoke about the incident in the third person as if he was just a casual observer. He downplayed his connection to Rachel, but investigators believe he knew her, possibly well. Is this the person who was driving that Trans Am? Is this the person who took Rachel? The sheriff's office won't say, but they want to talk to him, badly. And here's the twist you won't see coming. This isn't the only man investigators are looking at, because in the weeks before Rachel disappeared, she'd been receiving strange attention, unwanted attention. There was someone who'd been showing up places where Rachel was, someone who made her uncomfortable. Someone she mentioned to a friend just in passing, hey, this guy's kind of creepy comment. Rachel's friend didn't think much of it at the time, but after Rachel disappeared, that friend told investigators. There was someone. She didn't tell me his name, but she said he made her nervous. Who was this person? Was it the same man from the cattle industry, or was it someone else entirely? And here's the question that keeps me up at night. Did Rachel know she was in danger that morning? Because here's something investigators found that they haven't publicized much. Rachel's running route that day was different than usual. She typically ran a specific loop, but that morning, witnesses saw her in an area she didn't normally run through. Why? Was she trying to avoid someone? Was she meeting someone? Or was someone following her, forcing her to change her route? In the years after Rachel's disappearance, an anonymous woman contacted investigators with a chilling story. She said that about a week before Rachel vanished, she was walking in the same neighborhood. 3 men in a vehicle started following her slowly. They were calling out to her, trying to get her to come over to the car. She describes them as appearing to be construction workers, which makes sense. Given the area was under construction, the woman got scared and ran. The men didn't chase her on foot, but they followed her in their vehicle for several more minutes before finally driving away. She didn't report it at the time. She was embarrassed. She thought maybe she was overreacting. But when Rachel Cook disappeared a week later from that same area, this woman realized those men were hunting. They were looking for a victim. And when this woman got away, they found someone else. They found Rachel. The construction worker theory. This theory has never been fully investigated, and it drives me crazy. In January 2002, Rachel's neighborhood was a construction zone. Houses were being built. There were dozens of construction workers in the area every single day. These were transient workers, some local, some from out of town, some possibly undocumented. They'd show up, work for a few weeks or months, then move on to the next job. Many of these men have never been identified or interviewed. And here's the thing about construction sites. They're full of trucks, equipment, and places to hide things. If someone grabbed Rachel, threw her in a work truck, and drove her to a construction site, who would notice? It would look completely normal. And if that person then buried her body somewhere on a construction site, maybe in a foundation that was about to be filled with concrete, maybe in a lot that was being cleared, her body could be literally anywhere in Georgetown, under someone's house, under a parking lot, under a shopping center that was built in 2002. This theory is horrifying, but it's also entirely plausible. What happened to Rachel's belongings? Here's something that bothers investigators. Rachel's Walkman, her running shoes, her clothes. None of it has ever been found. If Rachel had been hit by a car or collapsed from a medical issue, those items would be with her body. If she'd been attacked and killed in the area, at least some of her belongings would have been left behind or discarded nearby. But nothing, not a single item. This tells investigators one thing. Whoever took Rachel kept her belongings, either as trophies or because they needed to destroy evidence. That Walkman, it probably had fingerprints, DNA, maybe even blood if there was a struggle. Those running shoes, they had a distinctive tread pattern that could have been matched to footprints. Someone knew this. Someone was smart enough to take everything and dispose of it where it would never be found. I want to pause here for a moment because I know this is heavy. These cases aren't just mysteries. They're real families going through real pain. If this story is affecting you, if you're invested in finding out what happened to Rachel, I want to ask you something. Would you consider subscribing to this channel? I'm trying to build a community of people who care about these cases, people who believe these families deserve answers. Your subscription helps keep Rachel's story alive. It helps YouTube show this to more people. And one of those people might know something. So if you can, hit that subscribe button. It would mean the world to me. Thank you. Now, let's talk about the investigation. Because what I'm about to tell you is going to make you angry. The first 48 hours. In missing person cases, the first 48 hours are critical. After 48 hours, the chances of finding someone alive drop dramatically. The trail goes cold. Witnesses forget details. Evidence degrades. So, how did law enforcement handle the first 48 hours after Rachel disappeared? Not well. Rachel was reported missing around 4 p.m. on Thursday, January 10th. But here's the problem. She was 19 years old. An adult. She'd been gone for maybe 7 or 8 hours at that point. The initial response from local police was essentially, maybe she just went somewhere and forgot to call. Maybe she's with friends. Let's wait and see if she comes home tonight. Robert and Janet Cook were frantic. No, you don't understand. Rachel wouldn't do this. Something's wrong. We need to search now. But precious hours were wasted. By the time search teams were mobilized and the case was being treated as a true emergency, it was already Friday morning, over 12 hours after Rachel was last seen. 12 hours is an eternity in these cases. 12 hours is enough time to transport someone out of state. It's enough time to hide a body. It's enough time to destroy evidence. And it's time Rachel's family will never get back. Over the years, investigators have looked at more than 100 persons of interest in Rachel's case. 100 people. That's not a typo. Some were construction workers in the area. Some were men with prior criminal records. Some were people who knew Rachel personally. Let me tell you about a few of them. Person of interest number 1, Michael Keith Moore. Michael Keith Moore was one of the first people investigators looked at seriously. Moore had a history of violent behavior, including assaults against women. Moore lived in the Georgetown area. In 2002, he matched the general description of someone seen in the neighborhood around the time Rachel disappeared. Police interviewed Moore. He denied any involvement. His alibi was shaky, but there was no physical evidence linking him to Rachel. Moore was never charged. And here's the thing. He's just one of many violent offenders who were in the area that day. Person of interest number 2, the cattle industry associate. This is the man I mentioned earlier, the one investigators really want to talk to. According to the 2021 statement from the Williamson County Sheriff's Office, this man was an associate of Rachel S. was involved in the cattle and horse industry, has been talking about Rachel's case, but distancing himself from it refers to her disappearance as the incident. That last detail is telling. People who are truly disconnected from a crime don't usually have a specific name for it. They don't call it the incident like it's a thing they think about. Who is this man? Did he and Rachel have a romantic relationship? A friendship? Was he someone who wanted more than Rachel was willing to give? Investigators won't say, but they want to interview him. And as of this recording, he hasn't come forward. Person of interest number 3, the anonymous stalker. Remember the man who made Rachel uncomfortable in the weeks before she disappeared? The one her friend mentioned? Investigators have never been able to identify this person. They don't know his name. They don't know what he looked like. They only know that Rachel mentioned to at least one friend that someone had been making her nervous. Was this person following her? Showing up where she was? Watching her house? And if so, is this the same person who took her? The evidence that vanished. Here's something that infuriates anyone who follows this case. Evidence has gone missing. Not Rachel, though obviously she's missing too. I mean actual evidence that investigators collected has disappeared from police storage. Photos, witness statements, physical evidence like tire track casts. How does this happen? How does evidence in an active missing person case just disappear? The answer is poor management, turnover in police departments, evidence not being properly cataloged or stored. But the result is the same. Potential leads are now gone forever. There are witnesses who were interviewed in 2002 whose statements are no longer in the case file. There are photos of suspicious vehicles that have vanished. It's maddening, and it's heartbreaking for Rachel's family, who've been fighting for 23 years to get answers. What modern technology reveals? If Rachel disappeared today, this case would probably be solved already. We'd have security cameras everywhere, Ring doorbells, traffic cameras, cell phone GPS data, social media posts showing exactly where she was and who she was with. But in 2002, none of that existed. Rachel didn't have a smartphone. She had a basic cell phone that she left at home. There were no security cameras in that neighborhood. No traffic cameras on those rural roads. The only evidence we have are witness statements, and memory is notoriously unreliable, especially 23 years later. In 2024, investigators are trying to use modern technology to solve the case. They're using forensic genealogy, like what solved the Golden State Killer case, to see if any unidentified DNA in the case can be matched to relatives in genetic databases. They're using geographic profiling, a technique that analyzes where suspects lived, worked, and spent time to predict where they might have taken Rachel. They're even using artificial intelligence to analyze the case files and identify patterns or connections that human investigators might have missed. But here's the problem. You can only analyze the evidence you have. And with so much evidence lost or destroyed, there are gaps that technology can't fill. The community that never forgot. One of the most beautiful and heartbreaking aspects of Rachel's case is how the Georgetown community has rallied around her family. Every year on January 10th, there's a memorial gathering. People place yellow ribbons on trees and mailboxes throughout the neighborhood where Rachel disappeared. Georgetown High School, where Rachel went to school, has a tree planted in her memory. When Rachel's case hit the 2-year mark, then the 5-year mark, then the 10-year mark, the community showed up. They showed up to remember. They showed up to search. They showed up to support Janet and Robert Cook. Janet said it best. Thousands and thousands of people came and walked their hearts out, and they'd come back crying because they didn't find her. That image, volunteers searching for hours, then coming back exhausted and heartbroken because they didn't find Rachel, that stayed with me. These weren't people who knew Rachel personally. Most of them never met her, but they cared. They cared because Rachel was one of their own. She was a Georgetown girl, and Georgetown takes care of its own. But caring isn't enough. Searching isn't enough. Because what nobody knew, what wouldn't come out until years later, was that the answer to what happened to Rachel might have been right in front of investigators the entire time. They just weren't asking the right questions. Here's what I need you to understand. Everything I've told you so far is the official story, the timeline, the witnesses, the theories. But there's another layer to this case. A layer that investigators have been quietly pursuing for years. A layer that, if true, changes absolutely everything. What if Rachel didn't disappear during her run? What if Rachel disappeared before she even started running? Stay with me here. The timeline that doesn't add up. Remember, Rachel's parents left for work early that morning. Her sister left for school. Rachel was asleep on the couch when everyone left. The assumption has always been that Rachel woke up sometime around 8:30 or 9 a.m., got ready, and went for her run. But here's the question nobody asked for years. How do we know that's what happened? We know Rachel was seen jogging around 10 a.m. and again around 11 a.m., but we don't know for certain that she left her house that morning. What if someone came to the house while Rachel was there alone? What if that someone convinced Rachel to get into their vehicle? What if they drove her somewhere and she never actually went for a run at all? But wait, you're thinking, witnesses saw her running. Did they? Or did they see someone in gray jogging clothes and a green sports bra running through the neighborhood? Could it have been someone else? Someone trying to create an alibi? Someone trying to make it look like Rachel went for her normal run? This theory sounds crazy. I know it does. But let me tell you why some investigators are taking it seriously. The Walkman problem. Rachel's yellow Walkman has never been found. Neither have her running shoes. Neither have her clothes. But here's what's interesting. Rachel's Walkman was a pretty standard model, the kind thousands of people owned in 2002. What if someone knew Rachel always ran with her Walkman? What if someone knew what she wore when she ran? What if someone dressed similarly and jogged through the neighborhood to be seen? And what if the real Rachel was already gone by then? I know this sounds like a conspiracy theory, but consider this. The witnesses who saw Rachel running that morning, they saw her from a distance. None of them spoke to her. None of them saw her face clearly. They saw a young woman in gray jogging clothes with a green sports bra and headphones running through the neighborhood. Could it have been someone else? The man nobody talks about. Here's where this theory gets really dark. In the months after Rachel disappeared, a man came forward to police. He said he had information about the case. This man claimed he knew someone who had been obsessed with Rachel, someone who watched her, someone who knew her routine. The man said his friend had talked about Rachel constantly in the weeks before she disappeared. And after she vanished, this friend suddenly stopped talking about her entirely, went completely silent on the subject. Police investigated this lead. They interviewed the person the man was talking about. And this is where the story gets fuzzy. Because according to some reports, this suspect had an alibi for the morning Rachel disappeared. He was supposedly at work. But here's the thing about alibis. They can be fabricated, especially if you have friends willing to lie for you. What if this man didn't take Rachel during her run? What if he went to her house early that morning, maybe 9 a.m., maybe earlier? What if he convinced Rachel to get in his car? Maybe he claimed there was an emergency. Maybe he said he needed her help with something. And then what if he dressed someone else? Maybe a girlfriend, maybe a female friend, in similar clothes and had them jog to the neighborhood to be seen? It sounds elaborate. It sounds unlikely. But you know what else sounds unlikely? A 19-year-old woman vanishing in broad daylight from a suburban neighborhood with zero witnesses and zero evidence. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. The burial site nobody expected. I'm about to tell you something that hasn't been widely reported. In 2019, a construction crew was excavating land for a new shopping center development about 15 miles from where Rachel disappeared. They found something. Human remains. Buried shallow, partially decomposed, wrapped in plastic. The remains were sent to the medical examiner. DNA testing was ordered. Rachel's family waited, holding their breath. Was this finally Rachel? Was this finally the answer they'd been searching for 17 years? The DNA came back. The remains were female, approximately the right age. But they weren't Rachel. They were someone else entirely. Another woman who'd been missing for years. Another family finally getting their terrible answer. But here's what that discovery taught investigators. There are burial sites in the Georgetown area that have never been found. Places where bodies have been hidden for decades. And if one person knew about these sites, others might too. What if Rachel is buried somewhere that hasn't been developed yet? Somewhere that's still wilderness, still undiscovered? What if she's been there this whole time and we just haven't found her yet? The confession that never was. In 2016, a man in prison for unrelated crimes told his cellmate that he knew what happened to Rachel Cook. The cellmate reported this to prison authorities. Authorities contacted the Williamson County Sheriff's Office. Investigators interviewed the man. He said he'd been told by a friend years ago that the friend had accidentally killed a girl while trying to rob her in Georgetown in 2002. The story was, this friend had been driving through the neighborhood looking for houses to burglarize. He saw Rachel running. He thought she lived in one of the nice houses. He followed her, waited until she was alone, then tried to rob her. Rachel fought back. She screamed. She struggled. And in the struggle, this man killed her. According to the story, the man panicked. He put Rachel's body in his truck, drove out to rural land, and buried her somewhere she'd never be found. The prisoner giving this information said his friend had described the exact location. He offered to show investigators on a map. Police followed up. They searched the area the prisoner indicated. They found nothing. Was the prisoner lying? Was he trying to get a deal on his own case? Was he mentally ill? Or was his friend's description of the location just wrong? Maybe off by a few miles, maybe distorted by time? We don't know. The lead went nowhere. But what if there's a grain of truth in it? What if Rachel really was killed by someone trying to rob her? What if it wasn't planned abduction at all, but a crime of opportunity that went horribly wrong? Janet Cook has kept Rachel's bedroom exactly as it was the day she disappeared. For 23 years, that room has sat untouched. Rachel's clothes still hang in the closet. Her high school yearbooks are still on the shelf. Her running shoes, the ones she didn't wear that day, are still by the door. Janet goes in there sometimes. She sits on Rachel's bed. She looks at the photos on the walls. Rachel at cross-country meets, Rachel with friends, Rachel at prom. And she talks to her daughter. I tell her I'm still looking, Janet says. I tell her I haven't given up. I tell her I love her. There's a board in that room, a memory board that people made after Rachel disappeared. It has handprints from dozens of volunteers who searched for Rachel in those first weeks, when it was first given to Janet. She couldn't look at it. She put it in the closet. The pain was too much. But eventually, she took it out. She hung it on the wall. This needs to be out, Janet said. Too many memories, yes, but good memories of people who cared, of a community that came together. That board represents something important. Rachel mattered. She wasn't just a statistic. She was loved. She is still loved. And somewhere, someone knows what happened to her. The $50,000 question. The FBI is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to Rachel's whereabouts or the arrest of the person responsible for her disappearance. $50,000. That's life-changing money for a lot of people. And yet, nobody has come forward with credible information to claim it. Why? Two possibilities. One, the person who took Rachel is dead. Maybe they died years ago, taking their secret to the grave. Two, the people who know what happened are too scared to talk. Maybe they're afraid of being implicated. Maybe they're afraid of retaliation. Maybe they're protecting someone they love. But I want to say this directly to anyone watching who knows something. Rachel's family deserves peace. Janet deserves to be able to bury her daughter. Robert deserves to know the truth. Joanne, Rachel's sister, deserves to not spend the rest of her life wondering what happened to her big sister. If you know something, please come forward. You can call the Williamson County Sheriff's Office. You can remain anonymous. There's a $50,000 reward. Do the right thing. Detective Jason Cox has been working Rachel's case for years. He's one of several investigators who devoted enormous amounts of time to finding her. Cox has 6 dedicated reserve officers who work on Rachel's case daily. Not weekly, not monthly, daily. 23 years later, they're still following leads. They're still interviewing people. They're still searching. In a 2024 interview, Commander John Foster of the Williamson County Sheriff's Office said, I personally think that this case will be solved eventually. I think that with the information we have and with the information we're likely to get, I do think that eventually we'll have an answer. That's not just hopeful talk. That's an investigator who knows something, who has leads he's following, who believes they're close. Close to what? An arrest? A body? The truth? He won't say. But the fact that he's confident tells me one thing. They know more than they're telling the public. And that gives me hope. If Rachel could speak. I want to end with this thought. Rachel Cook was 19 years old when she disappeared. She'd be 42 now. She'd probably be married. Maybe have kids. Maybe be working in fashion like she always dreamed. She had lived an entire adult life in these 23 years. But someone took that from her. Someone stole her future. Someone stole her parents' future. Someone stole her sister's future. And for what? Why? What could possibly justify taking a young woman's life? If Rachel could speak, what would she tell us? Would she tell us who took her? Would she describe what happened in those final moments? Would she tell us where her body is, so her family can finally lay her to rest? We can't hear Rachel's voice anymore, but we can speak for her. We can keep her story alive. We can put pressure on whoever knows the truth to come forward. We can support her family. We can refuse to let Rachel Cook become just another forgotten name on a cold case list. Because Rachel wasn't just a statistic. She was someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's friend. She was a girl who loved fashion and running in life. She was a girl who deserved to grow up. And she was a girl who deserves justice. If you've made it this far, thank you. Really, thank you for caring about Rachel's story. I have one request. Share this video. Post it on Facebook. Tweet it. Send it to your true crime group chats. Text it to people you know in Texas. Because someone watching this might know something. Someone might remember seeing something in Georgetown in January 2002. Someone might know someone who had a white Trans Am. Someone might remember a conversation that seemed innocent at the time, but now seems suspicious. Your share could be the thing that finally breaks this case open. And if you want to support this channel and help me keep telling these stories, a subscription would mean everything. I'm just one person trying to make sure these cases don't get forgotten. So please share, subscribe, and keep Rachel's memory alive. January 10th, 2002, a Thursday morning. A beautiful day in Georgetown, Texas. A 19-year-old girl laced up her running shoes, clipped her yellow Walkman to her waistband, and went for a run. She never came home. For 23 years, her family has been waiting, searching, hoping. And somewhere, someone knows what happened. If that someone is you, please come forward. Do it for Rachel. Do it for Janet and Robert. Do it for Joanne, who lost her sister when she was just a kid. Do it because it's the right thing to do. Contact information: Williamson County Sheriff's Office, 512-943-5204 PI, 1-800-CLO, FBI 1-800-225-5324. Submit tips online. tips.fbi.gov email. Cold Cases at wilco.org reward. $50,000. Rachel Louise Cook, born 1982. Last seen January 10th, 2002 at age 19. 5 feet 4 inches, approximately 120 pounds, athletic build. Last seen wearing gray jogging pants, green sports bra, Asics running shoes, carrying yellow Walkman. Bring Rachel home. This was Untold Cold Cases Files. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And thank you for not forgetting.